Hello, everybody. Welcome to the season 3 first show of Kera Dangerous Talk. I am so excited about this show tonight, baby. I have an awesome guest, and we're going to learn so much information. And you know what? We're going to just catch up. I'm telling you, we're back for season 3, and I'm ready to get started right now. But you know what we got to do first? Yes. Okay. So here's our guest. I'm gonna bring him in right now. How you doing, Professor Kaba?
My sister Kera, dangerous. I'm doing excellent. Looking forward to this conversation.
I am as well. I am so honored, I'm telling you, to have you on this show, to be able to speak with somebody who studied and researched and just have so much knowledge. That just excites me. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak with you and letting my audience hear from you.
No doubt. Thank you for the invitation, my sister. It's time for us to get the word out to the community. We got to talk to the folk. I consider this like a meeting at the African Square.
Yes, sir. I love that. Look, you know what? Me and you, we both said we're gonna talk about some DNA today, genes, melanin, a bunch of things. But I want to throw a little bit of a what they call a screwball to you. I want to throw a topic out there to you, doctor, because I know you can handle it. I'm calling you doctor because that's how much I know you know. But professor, I want to throw something out there to you, and I just want you to tell me what you know about it. And I know you know a lot, but I figured that you would find it important to talk about this. George Washington Carver.
Mm-hmm.
George Washington Carver, because I have a quote that you said he said a long time ago, and I'm going to paraphrase. I can't sell people something God didn't charge me for. Mm-hmm. And when I saw you speak about George Washington Carver, I said, I got to hear you speak about him again tonight.
Hero. And, you know, my sister Kera, even though people consider Albert Einstein the scientist of the 20th century, Albert Einstein, brilliant scholar. I give him all the credit in the world, and I respect him. But he did not contribute to the world what George Washington Carver did. George Washington Carver, of the many things that he did, he was a phenomenal scientist and also an artist. Mm-hmm. He was a phenomenal artist. And so when you look at someone like George Washington Carver, who in a little laboratory really was the hero of World War II. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't realize the impact that he had where Henry Ford, because when you go back into the war setting of World War II, with the advent of so many jeeps and airplanes, World War I introduced the idea of ships and tanks and other types. Because up until then, the wars that we fought were very straightforward. But with the advent of the car and the tanks and the airplanes, there came a very important need for rubber. Mm-hmm. And so what happened, as you look at the reality of what was going on, Henry Ford gave Dr. Carver money and opportunity to develop artificial rubber, mm-hmm. which he did. And that is what saved the Allies in World War II, because Germany had a hold on the rubber plantations. And so when you look at the concepts and what it is that's going on, George Washington Carver really was single-handedly the hero of World War II. Mm. Because had the Allies not been able to get rubber on their tanks, rubbers on the airplanes, the tanks couldn't roll, the jeeps couldn't roll, and the planes couldn't fly. George Washington Carver also brought back the color lapis lazuli for the first time since the ancient Kemites or the ancient Egyptians. The entire health food industry that focuses on soy needs to thank George Washington Carver for what he did with soy, not to mention what George Washington Carver did for the farms.
Yes.
That's a very important concept because there's something called the Three Sisters. Native Americans, indigenous people had this concept. It was also in Africa and it was around the world in farms where there was something called photovoltaics, which means the energy or the electricity that is produced by light, sunlight in particular. And what the Three Sisters was corn, beans, and squash. For instance, these are the Three Sisters. Got the same in Africa, got the same down south, got it all over the place. And what happens is that every product that you produce invigorates the soil to make the next product better. So let's say this is the corn season. You're growing corn. Photovoltaics, light, heat, and sound energy that comes down to the earth that enriches the corn produce allows the next produce, which is going to come, let's say it's squash, to make it a better squash season. And then because of the squash season, it makes it better for the bean season. So that literally nature, beautiful as she is, allows us to be able to grow on its own through us the produce, the foods that we need to feed us. Now, when Europeans came to America, they have no idea because remember, when you living in Europe and in the ice, you ain't growing much.
Right.
So your idea of agricultural science ain't there. I mean, you're going to pull out the earth whatever you can and eat that, cold as it may be. So they had no sense of agricultural science. And the little that they did have, they got from the Africans, the Moors in particular, and they were also taught by the indigenous people in America. And so when they came here, they had what's called a cash crop, which meant that they only grew cotton, let's say. But in only growing cotton without the concept of all the other things that could be grown there to reinvigorate the soil, the constant growing of cotton or tobacco or whatever it was that was making money for them all year long depleted the protein and nutrients of the soil. When George Washington Carver observed what had happened, he said, no, there's another way we could do this. So what he did is he started growing peanut and soy and other products that brought back the vitality of the soil. In other words, he resurrected the earth.
Beautiful.
And I'm asking the family to understand what I'm saying, to understand how powerful this man was. And it was in his DNA for him to be able to do this.
Now, I know you said we have to get back to the land, but you explain it so beautifully why that is and how connecting with the land helps us in a whole.
The land, we are the land and the land is us. You know, Western civilization has this concept of animate and inanimate objects. In other words, the living and the non-living. In the cosmos, there is no such thing as non-living. Everything vibrates. Rocks vibrate, mountains vibrate, grass vibrates. Everything vibrates. So there's no concept of something that does not live. And the earth, the living earth, is called Gaia. Gaia. It's the living earth. It's that part of the earth that actually, although people say that it's inorganic, it is very much organic. But if you don't come from that perspective, you could never perceive it. And if you do, then they call you crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, but you've got to be strong enough and convicted enough in what you know to consider them not worthy of a response, because you don't get it. You got to be in it to win it. George Washington Carver used, I remember I read a story of him going out into the fields for a week, and he came back with 52 inventions. He came back with 52 new things. They asked him, how did you know that? How could you come back with so many different things? Like with salves, because my father was in Tuskegee. And for instance, something that I'm talking about might be a salve that you put on, like when you run track, or if you're into sports and you work your body too hard, you put a salve on, SALVE, to kind of ease the pressure. Well, he used to create salves that the people that used them said, I walked in with a bad knee, but I walked out running. That, his salve not only was successful, but it was quickly successful. This is who George Washington Carver was. And the quote that you made was so very important to me, because that was a blessing and that was a curse. Because he's right. How can you charge somebody something for what the Creator gave you free?
Yes.
But now I have to say that's true, except when you're an angel living in hell. You have to understand that there are unscrupulous people that will steal your ideas and put their name on it. And so much of what George Washington Carver contributed to us is lost, particularly with Henry Ford. Henry Ford was a thief.
And I know you say he offered money to Carver and he didn't take it.
Yes.
Yeah. And he wouldn't take
no, he didn't.
He got an extra position at Tuskegee, right? And he got promoted, and he wouldn't take it because he wanted to teach the Black children.
Well, he didn't even get a promotion, Sister Kera. He just wanted to stay with Black people. He wanted to invest in the future. That is where he and I come in contact with what I so relate to as a person. There comes a time when there is no money that can be offered for what you have to do in your time. And George Washington Carver understood that the work he was doing at Tuskegee was revolutionary in nature, and that he could not be diverted or distracted in order to make more money. He was an angel living in hell. And he tried.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to end it by saying he was trying to be angelic amongst devils.
I feel like I do that a lot of times.
We all do that, my sister Kera. We all do that.
You were quoted as saying, I don't know if you remember this, you can't eat gold. It's just as simple as that. You said a lot of people started worshiping money, but simply, if we get back to the land, a lot of our problems are taken care of.
Well, here's my power. Here's my power question that I always like to ask people. If all the supermarkets, restaurants, and places you get your food were to close in an hour, could you eat dinner tonight?
I could.
I'll give you an example. Where I am, where I taught in the city, New York, there was a city that worked for the nutritional staff. When I used to go to school, she would feed the faculty. She had the food for the faculty. The children had their cafeteria. This was nutritional staff. And this sister and her sister had a small house with a small but very efficient backyard. And my being vegetarian, I always got the salads. My sister knew that I liked salads. So there were times that she would bring produce that she had grown from her salad, lettuce, tomatoes, cucumber. And she'd make me a nice fresh salad. She said, this is for you, because I know you like salad. And it came from her backyard in New York. I had another friend that had a lot of money working on Wall Street. A lot of money. And he lived in a condo, beautiful condo. Now my question becomes to the family, who had more power? The sister that had that small house with a small backyard, or the brother that owned a condo and had much money working on Wall Street? I would say it was the sister. Because when all things close down, although it's green, you can't eat money. And
Bingo.
so money is an illusion. It's always the land. The land was prepared for the human family. Everything, this is what Dr. Sebi and his wife, Sister Ma'at, tell us. Everything that was meant for us to eat was already on the planet before we came into existence as a human family.
Yes. Right.
Okay. And so that tells me that our most beautiful nature, our parents that brought us into existence, set the table for food before we came in the room. Land, not to own it. The same thing Dr. Carver said is the same thing that I say, same things indigenous people say. But guess what? When you're an angel living in hell, even you have to act a little devilish. That's the only way you'll survive.
You're right about that. Amen. Yes.
Now, my sister Kera, when you get back up into heaven, then just get back to being angelic, you know,
yes.
And don't get so deep into devilishness that you bring that devilishness with you back up into heaven, because ain't no room for that up there. Because they'll say
kicked out. Right.
Because you got in too deep. But you got to be able to manipulate, navigate life that we're experiencing. You know, in everything that I teach, for the most part, that's not always true for everything. I don't speak in absolutes. But nothing that I really teach, like what I'm telling you now, did I ever learn in my formal education. I don't have a doctorate. I have 2 master's degrees. And I got both of those master's degrees because it helped me with my job. It allowed me to get my licenses that I needed as an administrator and as a teacher, as a writer. I needed those licenses to substantiate what I was doing. I taught college for 14 years. I was offered 2 PhDs. But I had to do their research, because that's really what you're doing. You know, when you do PhD, you're really doing research that universities don't have the time to do. So they give you a PhD, but you do the research. I was doing so much deep research in the work that I was doing. I didn't have time for that, and I wasn't about to waste my time. So I turned them both down. The reason why people refer to me as doctor come from the fact that I used to be on 125th Street in Harlem teaching the community from the street. Back in the day, it was called stepping up on the ladder, where the scholars would get on a ladder and start to teach, and the people would surround them. Okay. And that's how, you know, and then people would say, well, who that? They say, oh, that's that doctor that's teaching Black history. Or that's that doctor that's teaching history. So pretty soon the name doctor became associated with my name. But I don't have a PhD or an EDD from an accredited university, because I don't have time to waste with them people.
You see, I called you doctor too. You see,
I'm sorry, say that again, my sister.
I said, you see, I was calling you doctor as well. It just comes out.
Yeah, but I am prouder of the doctor that the community calls me than any accredited college. I am so honored that the community, I never will refer to myself as doctor. I'll never tell you my name is doctor. I'll never tell you anything like that, because I'm not, according to the devilish ways in which you describe what a doctor is. But there's something in the Black community that when the community respects you and honors you, they call you doctor. They anoint you doctor. The people. That's more valuable to me than any accredited college telling me what I did. But the point that I'm making, Sister Kera, is the fact that had I not gone to college, which didn't teach me what I'm teaching now, but it allowed me to get a bachelor's degree, which allowed me to get a teacher's license, which allowed me to teach the children. That's what I mean when I say to act a little devilish. Because there's a lot of people say, I don't want to go to school. Well, I understand that. But then it's hard to argue the fact that, well, if you didn't get a bachelor's degree, you know that's a prerequisite to become a teacher. So you can't be upset that you're not a teacher because you knew what the rules were when you started the game.
Hello.
You know, play the game. That's what I used to tell my children in school. I've taught every grade, Sister Kera. My original license is early childhood. I'm a kindergarten teacher. I've taught every grade. I've taught every subject. And in my experiences in teaching, my greatest teachers were my students. Because I honestly believe that if the student hasn't learned, the teacher hasn't taught.
Ooh, okay. Now, see, I know you was a good teacher because you said you look for your students and know that they learn, and you learn from your students, you know?
Yes, yes.
I love that.
Them roughnecks, Sister Kera, them roughnecks don't want no part of me. Don't want to hear that. Okay? I have to devise a way to get to them somehow, some way. It was my job to do that. Now, we could all say, oh, that's a loser. He can't learn. He can't. Yeah, we can all do that. But what sharpens your teaching skills is your ability to find out a way to get to them, even if it's the coach. It may not be you. It may be his grandmother. He listened to his grandmother. I've even spoken to some gang members.
I believe it. Well, let me get us here because I got a lot more stuff I want to cover with you. I want to make sure we can get to a lot because I want people to understand the connection between cells and melanin, and we need to get into DNA with Henrietta Lacks in the science of healing cells. And I just want you to take the floor and do what you do and tell us why Henrietta Lacks' legacy is so important to us.
You know, my sister, thank you for the opportunity because I'll be doing the webinar on the immortal cells of Henrietta Lacks. And I know that some of us may have heard of her, knew of her from the book that was written on her and books that have been subsequently written about her. And also, I believe it was an HBO movie. And I one of my, my hashtag is no distractions. I wrote a book titled Shabaka Stone, which is an African theory on the origin and continuing development of the cosmos or the cosmic universe. And there was a chapter in my chapters I developed after I published the book on Amazon. I then developed a series. I've got a 12-part series on my book, Shabaka Stone. And every webinar talks about and discusses a particular chapter. One of the chapters in Shabaka Stone that I'm attempting to demonstrate the relationship between deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, and the cosmos, the connection between the cosmos and us as humans. I wrote a chapter on DNA. I had heard about Sister Henrietta Lacks. I had gone through that process. I understood the ramifications of all the things that happened. But I wanted to approach her from a different perspective. I wanted to approach Henrietta Lacks from the perspective of looking at her as royalty, as having royal blood, and understanding something about her cells. I did research on her cells. A lot of people did research on her life. Now, her grandson, Ron Lacks, has written a phenomenal book on Henrietta Lacks. I'm in the process of finishing it up now because he and I are going to do an interview in December. Well, at the end of December, December 19th. And to understand Henrietta Lacks, in the second book I wrote, Spirituality Before Religions, the last chapter, I wrote the book for the last chapter, which is where do we go from here? Because it's a conversation I have to have with sisters, brothers too, but sisters in particular. Because we are now on the cusp of moving into what is called in Africa the age of Hapi, H-A-P-I. Science says it's the age of Aquarius, the water. Okay. For the next 2,160 years, our known world is going to generate a feminine energy. We can see it happening already. We can see sisters rising. This is the age. We can see it. Women in general, Black women specifically, because the reason why the president sits in the White House today is because of a Black woman. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say it was Jim Clyburn. But remember, Jim Clyburn evoked the memory of his wife in support of the president that is there now. From that, the sisters revolutionized the voting process in America, and that man's in the White House today because of the Black woman. Not that the brothers didn't help. I'm not trying to go there with this conversation. It's a balance. I'm a brother, been a brother all my life.
Right.
Proud to be a brother. But I do recognize the gifts that the African women have been given. And it was my knowledge of melanin, which is a molecule, and then my study of what's called the HeLa cells, H-E-L-A, the HeLa cells, meaning Henrietta Lacks. For years, they put up another fake woman's name so we wouldn't know it was a Black woman. And they made up a name that began with a H-E. The last name began with a L-A.
Right. Just separate. Yep.
Okay. And so the key with the HeLa cells, I'll just give you a few examples because this Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Pacific time, we going in. I'm going to show you the power of the Black woman as the original mother, not just of the earth, but of the cosmos. So that as we're going through Henrietta Lacks's life, we have to understand that there was a man by the name of Dr. Jonas Salk that did experiments with her cells. And within 2 months, he found the cure for polio. Dr. Mae Jameson, the first African-American female, what I call Ma'at, or astronaut, she brought Henrietta Lacks's cells in space and did experiments with Henrietta Lacks's cells.
Can I ask you a question really quickly?
Sure.
I hear so many people say that Black women have this divine gift, or they are special to this world, or special, like I said, divinely. But if so many Black people aren't aware of that power and that gift, does that affect the world when they're not aware? Like for me, I think I'm aware. But when I look at so many other women, it clearly seems like they're not aware of the power that they possess. Does that kind of knock things off balance because they don't recognize that?
My sister Kera, look at what we're experiencing.
Exactly.
We are balanced. Yes, it does. You know, you can be the most phenomenal person in the world, but if you don't realize it, you are who you think you are. And we have been given a bill of goods that have been bamboozled us.
Mm-hmm.
They purposefully have made us feel inferior. They purposefully have underdeveloped us. And there is a price to be paid for that, because Mother Nature did not bring that brother into the world to nod out on the corner on heroin. A sister was not brought into this world to be abused. Every birth. I mean, I can't, I don't want to hear nothing about, my daddy not home. I understand that concept.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate the fact that if your mother is impregnated and your father does not take responsibility for you, I realize that there is an absence in the world. But what I used to tell my children is that you belong to a much greater family.
Yes.
You belong to a cosmic family.
Yes.
Your mommy and daddy were given the job to bring you in physically, but it is the great spirit that brought you in, period.
No illegitimate child. That's what you say.
There is no such thing as an illegitimate child.
Yes.
The only thing that exists is an illegitimate thought of an illegitimate child. Every child is legal. Every child is God having a human experience. Who are these people to think that they can lay down a law like that? Who are they to say that somebody is an illegal alien when we know who the original illegal aliens are?
Mm-hmm.
It's all projection. It's insecurity, fragility, deep inferiority. If somebody gives you an illusion and you accept it as your reality, it is a reality because you believe it.
Wow.
But if you see it as an illusion, and you see, I have worked with many children in special ed. I remember I was right on the cusp of when special ed, the public law came out and special ed classes were set up. This is in the mid 70s, late 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And I have worked with children of just about every level of special education, particularly because since I was an administrator, I had to develop programs for them. So I've worked with bilingual special ed children. I've worked with Ms. 1 through 12. I've worked with children who, if they should just raise their hand, you're doing good. I know what it is like to work with people who are emotionally, physically, intellectually, or even spiritually challenged. I've watched how they operate. I've watched how they work, how they live, how they act. My interpretations of the European American ethnic stock, because it's not a race, it's an ethnic stock. It's a mutation of the original archetype, which came from Africa, but be that as it may. As a group, because I don't speak in absolutes. I don't believe in speaking in absolutes. I don't say everybody's anything. There are exceptions to all rules. That's science. And if you can prove one exception, then it can't be a rule anymore. So I'm very careful with the things I say. But as a group, the European ethnic stock have very serious mental issues that they have brought to the southern world because of their experience in the Ice Age for thousands of years. They have a very serious problem with their thinking process and coming to conclusions. Don't believe me. I always tell people, don't believe a word I say. Just allow me to make you think. And what I want to say to verify what I just said is, look at how they're acting now. Just look at how they're acting. They're like dogs that are biting each other. Even within the Republican Party now, they're fighting each other. Watch them. But family, here's my thing. We can sit here and talk all about them that we want to. But what are we doing? What are we doing? If we know this to be true, what are we doing? You know, it's like parents watching children act up, destroying the house, and nobody's taking responsibility. Mm-hmm. We've got to understand that these individuals have very serious problems. They've had serious problems. Most, if not all, of their ideas were generated from us. We built America. I don't want to hear nothing about no immigrants built America. Immigrants may have come and brought something with them, which they did.
Mm-hmm.
Immigrants did come from all over the world to America. But they came to America for a better way of living, and that better way of living was supplied by the African Americans, if we want to call them foundational African Americans. They are the ones that built America in order for people from other parts of the world to want to come in and better their life. It's obvious that America was better than from where they came from. And if that be true, who made America better? It was the African American whose labor was free.
Hello.
And whose ingenuity. We were their industrial revolution. We were the machines before the machines that built America. And when all these other immigrants came in and they want to give credit to this group, and they didn't do that. It's like I build a house and then someone come in and furnish it and then claim they built the house. No, you came in and furnished it. You didn't build it. I built it. And if it didn't look so beautiful, you wouldn't have want to move in to live there. And some of that furniture, we got to move out anyway because it's nasty.
Professor, I think you could bring this back to the DNA and let people know why that melanin is so valuable.
Melanin is a molecule.
Mm-hmm.
The atom that you want to look at, the element that you want to look at is carbon.
Mm-hmm.
There are 4 major atoms. Okay, let me explain it to you like this, because sometimes people confuse what an atom is with an element.
Okay.
Think of us going to an ice cream store. The flavor is the atom.
Okay.
The scoop of ice cream of that flavor is the element.
Okay.
And when you mix a lot of scoops together, that becomes the molecule.
Makes sense.
I wish I had known that when I was in the 5th grade.
And look, I love ice cream, so that it just makes sense now.
Something that seems so difficult is so very straightforward. And again, like I say, if the student hasn't learned, the teacher hasn't taught. I learned how to do that. I didn't do that years ago. I learned that in the process of trying to teach. I studied, how do I teach the atoms, elements in science class, the periodic table of elements? How can I teach it? Because it's very difficult to talk about, but there are comparisons that you can make. The 4 atoms, the 4 flavors that make up the world as we know them, the major ones: hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon. When it comes to building molecules, you can put no more than 4 atoms together to do anything. You can put 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, H2O. You can put 2 parts hydrogen, 2 parts oxygen, and you have hydrogen peroxide. You can do that with hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. You can do that with those 3, but you cannot put more than 4 atoms together to create a molecule. But when you introduce carbon, that is what's called the cosmic glue. That's what makes the billions of molecules that exist in our world. Carbon. Carbon is what initiates life. When you talk about organic life, anything living, you're talking about the ability to assimilate carbon in their makeup. And so carbon is the living. Carbon is black. Carbon in the earth, put under great pressure. Blackness, put under great pressure. Coal, put under great pressure. Pushed in, crystallizes and becomes diamonds. In the cosmos, you have something known as nanodiamonds, which is the black matter that is pushed in by dark energy and pushed in and pushed in and pushed in until there's no more space. And that blackness implodes, and that becomes a star. Stars are crystallized blackness. Diamonds are crystallized blackness.
Mm.
Human beings that are melanin rich are diamonds in the rough.
Woo. Woo. Look, y'all better listen up. I'm telling you.
This is science. This is not emotion. I know in the 60s growing up, people said black is beautiful, and I understood that. But now I understand why black is beautiful. And not only is black beautiful, black is the only thing that exists because everything comes out of the black. Prove it. Okay, what I want you to do, okay, we in kindergarten now. I want you to get a white piece of paper, and we're going to get the 8 primary colors. And we're going to take the red crayon, and we're going to draw a line. Then we're going to take the orange, and we're going to draw a line. Well, the secondary colors too. Orange, draw a line. Then we're going to take yellow and draw a line. Green, blue, indigo, another touch of indigo, and then purple. What's the end color line? Black. Try it. Don't believe me. I did it with my kindergarten children, just explaining to them why they were so beautiful being black. Everything comes out of the black. Let me tell you something else. This whole concept of the speed of light being the fastest thing, the speed of light is not the fastest thing. The fastest thing that exists is the speed of darkness. Because everywhere that light goes, dark is already there.
Look, now you got, I know you said it's not emotion. I know it's science, but you got me over here like I'm listening to some good hip hop. Because I mean, you putting it down. I'm telling you, you giving us the real deal.
Sister Kera, the emotion that you feel is the God within touching the truth. People say, like I say to people, I don't speak truth to power because truth is power. I speak truth to liars.
Whew. Yes.
Or those that may not know. Wherever you go.
Yes.
Now, with what I just said about the carbon atom and about melanin, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about when I do the webinar on Sunday. I want to show it to you, family. I don't want to just talk. My thing throughout my life has been to demonstrate, show the community what you're talking about. I think one of the most dangerous things that we have is we have people talking to us and they are not clear and concise and they're not explaining to us what we ought to know. I believe that a clear and concise explanation without making people feel they have to believe you. Here's my information. Check it out.
Yeah.
That's it.
Let it speak for itself.
Let it speak. And that's what science does. Science is knowledge. Check this out, Sister Kera, and to the family. This is the kind of conversation I want to have with sisters. Brothers too, but I want to talk to sisters because sisters, this is your age that you're coming into right now. And you have to assume power, but first you must assume power of yourself. Before you can assume anything outside of yourself. Sister Kera, when your grandmother was born, every egg that she would ever produce, she was born with.
That's true.
Okay, let's take it one step further. If that is true, when your grandmother was born, your mother was born too. But hold on, I want to take it one step further.
Take it further.
Because if your mother was born when your grandmother was born and your mother had all the eggs that she would produce, When your grandmother was born, your mother was born, but so were you.
I got what you mean.
Your grandmother has every egg, which is one of them is your mother.
Mm-hmm.
Your mother has every egg, which is you. You can go back millions of years, and I could tell you, Sister Kera, the day your ancestor was born 4 million years ago, so were you.
Wow.
And that's what mitochondrial DNA is. It is the evidence of the track of all humans can be traced back to their mother, including the brothers. Because when my grandmother was born, my mother's mother was born, my mother was born. But when my mother was born, I was also born because her X chromosome for me was in her.
Well, so did you answer the age-old question? Did the egg come first?
Yeah, the egg. Well, what when you saw which came first, the chicken or the egg? The egg came first.
Mm-hmm.
Because the egg is a verified form of the chicken. It was a dinosaur. It was a reptile, the original chicken. And what happened through selective mutation or whatever happened, another form of that reptile was created, and that was born in the egg. The chicken didn't come first. The chicken did not give birth to the egg. A reptile gave birth to a chicken egg, and from that point on, all the others were chickens.
Wow. Whew. Look, I want to go ahead.
But they're not teaching us this.
No, they're not.
Because if they taught us this, they'd have to teach us something else. And that is that there's only one race on the planet. That's the human race. And that human race was conceived, born, nurtured, sustained, educated, civilized, technologized in Africa. And when Africans got their show on the road, then they took it across the globe and peopled the planet.
But I know you feel a certain way about Asians and Caucasians. About I've heard you say this before about coming from, was it you said coming from black or not being a sub race or something like that? I heard you say
ethnic stock.
Ethnic stock. Okay,
Yeah.
Ethnic stock.
Yes. Bottom line is Africans were born in Africa and then they peopled the planet. Some of them traveled north, and they traveled at a time when they did not realize that ice ages had come about. There were 4 ice ages: the Gunst, the Mindel, the Riss, and the Worm. But Africans traveling into this area thousands of years ago, maybe 30, 40, 50,000 years ago, came at a time when the ice age had subsided, and they lived there for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, the worm glaciation comes back, and they're locked in the northern climate. These Africans, to survive, had to depigment themselves. The morphological changes had to occur. And there are 3 laws that prove this.
Mm-hmm.
Glosier's law, Allen's law, Bergman's law. One deals with pigmentation, one deals with morphology, and the other deals with regulations of the body. Glosier's law, Allen's law, Bergman's law. And the idea is the fact that in that very cold climate, and I'm talking about cold, I'm not talking about what we experience now. I'm talking about an ice age. I'm talking about where sometimes the degrees could go down, sometimes 300-400 degrees below zero.
Oof.
I'm not talking about what we experience here when we say it's cold outside.
No. No.
This is a different kind of cold. And so in order to survive in this climate, because they needed to get as much sunlight as they could to produce what they needed. And having a dark complexion acts almost like suntan. It protects the organism from the rays of the sun, but in the cold climate, it forbids even the light, heat, and sound energy that the body needs, like like ultraviolet rays B. There's 3 different types of ultraviolet, A, B, and C. And so in our skin, the process goes through it where in depigmentation, well, we're doing it right now. Look, it's December right now. I am not the complexion I was in
No.
July. Okay, my hair texture is not the hair texture it was late July. Even European women have nappy hair, but they don't call it nappy. They call it frizzy.
Well, you got that right. They call it frizzy.
But it's nappy. It's what nappy hair is. And what it is that in the presence of the light, heat, and sound energy, there is a relationship between a oily, waxy substance in the skin, in the hair follicle known as sebum, sebum. See, I like to stay science. That's why they don't invite me places.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you have a couple of minutes past 8 we can go?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we can go a couple more, my sister.
Okay, great.
But the concept that I'm really trying to get to more than anything else, my sister, is for us to understand who we are and understand they will never teach you this. Never. I'm speaking as a group. I know individuals are. I've seen individuals do great work of other cultures teaching truth. I've seen that. I understand that. I recognize that. But I'm saying we as a people have to understand that they as a group will never give up their own power freely.
2 things, Mr. Carver, to go along with that. You said previously that white people think they are God. So I want you to go into your reasoning for saying that, and then I have something else for you.
Well, it's the Bible passage where the white folk wrote that you are to be obedient to God as you are to be obedient to your master as you are to your God. The fact that they made God white, they think they're God. Okay, that's right there tells me something.
And just to drop this, guys, I got Black God shirts coming in about a week, dropping on my website. Just a shameless plug in between this interview. Keep going, Mr. Carver.
But that's somewhat of the example that I would give.
Yes.
And look at how they act. Even now with these situations coming up now, look at their decisions that they're making about voting and about the right of a woman's body. They're making decisions over other people as if they are the creator. Now, I always tell people you are the creator having a human experience. But their concept of God is to a dominant God, because remember, the Ice Age dominated them. They couldn't do nothing. Everything they thought they wanted to do, even with us now, when the wintertime comes, there's a lot of things that we can't do. Okay? When it's warm outside, there's a lot of things that we can do. And we can make choices. Oh, yeah, I think I will go to the beach. Oh, yeah, I think I will go to the party. Because the warm weather allows the way in which it's very conducive to life. But when you're in the ice, that ice dominates you. And that's their perception of their God. It's an angry God. It's a jealous God. It's a violent God. It is a God that will kill your baby while you're holding your baby in your arms through frostbite. There was no mercy in the ice. And they became their environment. And they brought that concept back with them into the southern world. Look at how they're acting. Don't believe me. Just look at them.
Well, have we started to? Because a lot of times it seems like we emulate them after a while. And now I'm starting to see some Black people do crimes and different things that we normally didn't do.
That's right.
That's right. I'm wondering with this new age will be coming in, since you say it's going to be an age of femininity, will we see Black women actually come into more of a collective consciousness where they understand that they are divine?
I think they're doing it. I think it's happening as we speak. It's not happening as quickly with so many. Okay, I understand that. But it took hundreds of years to get in this position. You know, when someone wants to dominate you, there's three things they do. They will tell you a lie, they will get you to believe the lie,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll ensure that you form the habit of believing the lie. And even though it's the last thing formed, it's always the hardest to get rid of, because we know that white is not supreme, and we know that it's a lie. But we have lived so long forming the habit of believing it, it's hard to cut that loose. They're not. Look at them. Look at how they are producing. Look at what they're doing. They're failing. Russia is over. China is over. You know, I know a lot of people looking at China think it's big stuff. No, China is not. China's going to go down the same way everybody else is going down, because if you embrace, my daddy used to say, you may not be of trash, but if you touch it, you'll smell like it.
Hello. Yes.
Okay. China, back in the day before Richard Nixon was the president, before there was trade, everybody used to get everywhere they needed to go by bike.
Mm-hmm.
Before all the cigarette companies were all up in China, before the cigarette companies were in China. And now people got to walk around with masks on their face because everybody got cars. They're now no longer riding bikes. They got McDonald's, Crack Donald, you know, Murder King, you know, Haunted Castle, and they, you know, they even have Sunken Donut. Their diet is going off. Okay, and so it becomes important. The Chinese that we know today are what's called Proto-Dravidian and Proto-Eurasian.
Mm-hmm.
Asians of today that we call Asians are a mixture of the original two people that came out of the mountains. They have the blood type of both African and Eurasian together, both types. Chinese are no older than 7,000 years old.
Wow.
Europeans are no older than 10,000 as we know them today. But the people we know today are not those people. The people that came out of the mountains are known as the Cro-Magnon. The original Africans are called Grimaldi.
Mm.
Those are the Africans that went first to Europe, and then the transformation of this Grimaldi into this depigmented entity is called Cro-Magnon. The Cro-Magnon is the one that came out of the mountains. But what they did when they came out the mountains is that they refused to mate with the original archetype of humanity. So they inbred amongst themselves.
Wow.
So the people we're dealing with today as Eurasians, they are not mutations. They are mutations of mutations.
Look, you just made me think of a question, and I wanted to ask another question. But we know there's white on white violence, but people talk about black on black violence, which Dick Gregory said that doesn't really exist, that concept. Is there a deeper reason to why our young men kill each other other than just slavery? Is it something to do with tribalness or anything back in the day? I just want to know from you, somebody who studied and researched so many things, have you come up with anything else to be the reason why we have so many issues with violence with each other, amongst each other?
I would just like to be as open and straightforward as possible.
Go ahead.
In Africa, we have our saints and we have our sinners.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sometimes when we talk about the greatness of Africa, it makes it seem like nothing bad ever happened. And that's just not true.
Okay, right.
And you know, we just have to embrace that. Dr. King was right when he said to judge somebody by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin or their religion or any of the other isms that create schisms. But while we hold up Africa and respect Africa for all the wonderfulness that they brought, we also must not turn a blind eye to things that were not proper, because here's what I'd like to end with. Every time I've studied our history, going back from Kush Kemet or Egypt to, if you want to call it, Hannibal, okay, and the great kingdoms of North Africa, such as Carthage or Cartadas and Numidia, going to the Moors, 1492, going to the enslavement trade, going to the plantations, going to the civil rights movement, and going to present day violence amongst us as a people. I have never seen them come in, they being those of Eurasian descent who wish to destroy us. I have never seen them come in directly and defeat us. I've always seen them come in and exploit us fighting amongst ourselves. We must stop fighting amongst ourselves. Whether you're looking at the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X, that was a tragedy. It was a tragedy. This was a father and son that jealous, angry, vicious people got in between and wanted to break that love up. And they were successful.
Yes, they were.
We must never let that happen again. We don't have no argument between W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, or W.E.B. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey, or Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. We have to stop fighting each other. We must respect the fact that we can disagree, but we must never be disagreeable. We can have unity and not be unified in thought. So that the image that I have of Africa is of greatness. But at the same time, I understand where we made errors, and I want to correct those errors for them never to happen again. And one of the first things to correct that error is we stop fighting amongst ourselves and allow other people to come in and split us. I am Black first.
Yes, that's what Dr. Boy said. But before you go, I got to ask you this question because we talked about it over the phone and the people need to know. What is the real, true reason why they are pushing interracial relationships? After this, I will let you go, but you got to let us know, please, right now.
Well, please let me take you back. They've never had a problem with interracial marriage. That's why we look the way we look.
Okay.
They may not have married us, but they had no problem with the relationships. But the reality that you're calling, I call it the Robert De Niro, Kim Kardashian effect. And I go back to when I told you about when the Cro-Magnon came out of the mountains. And I told you the first thing that those Cro-Magnons should have done was to find the blackest African that they could find to mate with. Because every time they mated with one of their own, they were pushing themselves off of the line of existence. Now they realize it. Their only hope, if you are depigmented, European or Asian, your only hope, if you are a man, is to plant your seed in a Black woman's egg. And if you are a white woman, Asian woman, you want the Black man's seed to fertilize your egg. The world is going black. Science. It was born black. It was meant to be black. We depigmented ourselves in order to survive. But once we survived and we came back, we as Africans should have mated with the original archetype. So what you see happening right now is the delayed effect. They're realizing their only hope is to mate with Black. And we'll have to.
I'm sorry, are they teaching their children this for real? Because I've heard so many people say this.
Oh, no, that's why they're going crazy.
Okay.
You know, it's called cognitive dissonance. You know the truth, but you're fighting it. Okay, that's what they're doing. They know the truth. They cannot survive. They're not surviving. Right now, it's called the total fertility rate. For a family, for a human family to be able to survive into the future, they should produce 3 children, or 2.6, they say. Which means that in 10 European families, they should be producing 26 children. Demography is telling us, the study of populations, is that Europeans are only producing 16. 1.6 child. For a lot of different reasons. So that they are on the road to extinction. Do you hear this cry out? It came from France, but it's part German, part European. It's just part of Europe. It's called replacier, which means the replacement. You hear them when they was chanting in South Carolina, you know, who will not replace us? Okay, because they know their time is up. There's going to come a time like right now, we turn on TV, we see all people of European descent. In 100 years, it ain't going to be like that. And since they lean towards dominant, they need to dominate people to feel good about themselves. When they are the minority, they're even crazy enough to talk about the majority minority. Now, that's crazy. That's an oxymoron. How could it be majority minority? But what they want us to believe is that even though we are in the majority, they still trying to get us to think like we minority. This is their psychology. We have dominated the world ever since it first came out. They have always been the minority. And those numbers that they talk about, I don't believe them. Don't tell me that China has the most people. You have not been to Africa and count all them black people. You can't even get the census right in New York. How you gonna get it right in Canada?
You sure right, because they knocked on my door when I was living in Manhattan about 20 times. I'm trying to dial them. They don't know the numbers. They don't have the numbers.
They have no idea the numbers. Don't tell me who, don't tell me that. I don't want to hear that. But you see, to do that, you have to have the science that backs you up, my sister. And that's what I'm focused on. That's what I'm focused on this Sunday with my webinar. That's what I focus on my Quibinars. Let me invite the community, please, to go to my website, www.kabakamene.com, www.kabakamene.com.
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll make sure I put it in the description of this video so that you guys could see go to his e-courses. Some of them are free, and he has study guides and all that, like he said. So
it's all up there. And once you go to my website, you'll have access to being able to go to my webinars, to go to my Quibinars, to download the materials that I have that would be of interest to you.
What about your
and
book?
Also, my books are on Amazon.
Okay.
Okay. My first book was on Professor William Leo Hansberry, who was the archetype of, he was the one that developed the first African studies program in an accredited college. And my second book is Spirituality Before Religions, where I'm demonstrating that spirituality is unseen science. Science is seen spirituality. And my third book was Shabaka Stone. Shabaka is SHABAKA' stone, which is a theory, an African theory on the coming into being of the cosmic universe. And on my Instagram page, Kaba Kamene, that I use that like my bulletin board. I let folk know what's going on, what I'm doing, where I, where I need to do what I need to do. But family, this webinar coming up, it's going to explore areas that some of us have never even thought of. Do you know that Henrietta Lacks' cell is what created the COVID-19 vaccine? They used her cells for COVID. They used her cells for HIV. They used her cells for Zika. They
Wow.
used her cells for Ebola. If you've gotten the vaccine, any vaccine, Henrietta Lacks dwells within you.
Ooh.
That's how deep this is. We don't know how great we are. And the final thing that I want to say about Henrietta Lacks, which is to me the single most important aspect, with due respect, she is the rule, not the exception. The greatness in her cells. She died in 1951 at the age of 31, 70 years ago. Family, her cells are still surviving, they are still thriving, and they are multiplying.
Multiplying.
Now, multiplying is the key to understand, because that is why I call her immortal.
Yes.
Black people, you, brothers and sisters, you are immortal. And that's what our ancestors were carving on the walls of Kush and Kemet to let us understand how dynamic we are. You don't have to go back to Kush for a classical African civilization. You can go to the plantation. That's a classical African civilization. You can go to civil rights and human rights era of the 60s. That's a classical African civilization. You can go to hip hop. That's a classical African civilization. Or you can go into your mirror and look at the person that you're looking at and understand that that person is also a classical African. You are a classical African. Never forget that.
Kaba Kamene, baby. Kaba Kamene. Yes, the blast off season 3 of Kera Dangerous Talk. Look, Kaba, you're going to be a lifetime friend. I hope you don't think you're going to get rid of me, because I'm going to call you sometimes. I love to learn, brother. I love you. I love you. I love you. You brought it tonight with your knowledge. I sure, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate it. My audience loved you. You saw a comment, said this was the best show ever. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome, my sister, and to my family that is tuned in. Please understand the most precious thing we have is time. Time is the most precious thing. You can lose all your fortune and you still can make money. Your house can burn down, you can build another one. Everything that you have, you can always replicate. The one thing you will never be able to do is have another November 30th, 2021. Yes. So how you spend your time is very important. And I just appreciate and respect the fact that those who have tuned in have chosen to spend their time. It is the most valuable thing we can give to each other is time. Yes. So as you value my time, I also value your time, because your time to you is like my time to me. It's valuable. Yes. Spend your time wisely. Spend it wisely. And don't get caught up in distractions. The devil doesn't lie. The devil confuses. Put a quarter truth to 3/4 lie. And you so busy trying to find the truth in the lie, you get distracted.
Yeah. And let me tell you guys, he's a great guest. Make sure you join me tomorrow night. I'm live with Kera Dangerous Live. I have a black paramedic on. They so overlooked, and he wants to talk to you about all the hard work he does to help save lives on the emergency when you call in 911. So please tune in tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm sorry, Kaba. Go ahead with your thoughts, brother. You had something else to say.
The only thing I want to say is I hope I see you Sunday.
Yes.
5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Pacific time, family. We're going to drop the knowledge this Sunday. We got things we got to say. So keep on keeping on. It ain't over till we win. Solar power is the future wealth of the planet.
Yes, please, while on air, please come back again, Mr. Carver, when you have time. I would love for you to grace the show again. You see they're asking for you.
Oh, yeah. We're going to work it out. This is just the beginning of a long-time relationship.
Oh, give me a virtual hug, Carver.
There we go. There we go. It's there.
All right. See y'all tomorrow night. I love you. Please like, comment, and share this broadcast. Peace.